refuge is very important because it is the root of all the Dharma and the preliminary practice of all the path and the foundation of all the vows, and it is a thing to differentiate between the Buddhist and non-Buddhist. As I said yesterday, being born in a Buddhist family does not mean that one is a Buddhist, but anyone who takes refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha for the sake of liberation, then one becomes the Buddhist. So when you enter the Dharma path, the very first thing is to take refuge. And I have already explained to you, I'm sure many of you are at the present at yesterday's talk, so with that then we take the refuge. Tabge doje shaje reso zhong shenje medo deje bonjong ba serje lumbo tabo jik shaje jabe shala chaza lo chanzar wadan shijin shaba dan jiso yirang gushin sa yawa jingse dage jisa ba tamje zobe chanju chenpo sashi pechi chushin medo Ralinshi Ninde Jemba de Sanje Shindu Midemba Dogen Namda Shindu Jebarasho. So now to take refuge, as I have already explained to you yesterday, it is very difficult to obtain human life, especially the human life which is endowed with all the 18 prerequisites. And then also everything is impermanent, and our life is, there's no definite lifespan. And so it is a complete uncertainty of the death. And at the time of death, that nothing can help us except Dharma. And then also, everything we encounter in our life is the product of our own deeds. So whatever experience that we encounter in our life are our own deeds. And the samsara as a whole, there's nothing but suffering. And so to overcome the suffering, the most effective way is to practice Dharma. And to practice Dharma, the very first step is to take refuge. As if one need to go to an unknown place, then you need the guide who can show us the correct path. So we take refuge in the Buddha as our guide. And then we take refuge to reach your destination. You have to travel on the path by yourself according to the direction given by the guides. And so we take refuge in the Dharma as our actual path. And we take refuge in the Sangha as companions, as one who takes a long and difficult journey, that instead of traveling yourself alone, that you have a trusted companions, then it is a very helpful. So therefore, that we take a refuge in the Sangha. So in this way, that and the refuge is actually from one's own mind. It's not just the recitation of the verses, but mainly it is from the depth of one's own mind. Just by reciting, for example, if it rains, you escape to the caves. But just by saying the caves, one cannot be protected from the rains. But without any doubts, if you go to the caves, then you will be protected from the rain. So similarly, although the recitation is important, but most important thing is to take refuge from one's own heart or one's own mind. And so, as I said yesterday, the Mahayana Refuge is with the 4 specialties: the cause, duration, object, and the purpose. So with this in mind, that you are all, and you have to, first time you have to receive from a preceptor the unbroken transmission of the refuge vow that been passed down from the Buddha himself up until now. It cannot be, you can't receive the refuge through the books or through the any other means, but from person to person. And so therefore then I'm giving the a refuge here, and then you repeat after me. And there's a one part which says Da Ming. Da means I, Ming means name. So there you have to add, after repeating the Da Ming, you just add yourself, your own personal name. Da Ming so and so. Da Ming whatever your name, Da Ming so and so. Because this is important, because without saying your own name, then it is not effective. But if you say your own name, that means that then you are actually taking refuge. Ini di jendu je loben gongsuso da ming xiejiwe tu dine songde sisi chanju ningbola shiji pardu gangni namjicho sangyela gyabsuchiu dejatang chawa namjicho shula gyabsuchiu so namjicho gendunla gyabsuchiu. That second time also you say same way by adding your name after the Da Ming, as you need to repeat this 3 times. Loben, Gongsuso, Da Ming, Xiejiwe, Tu Dine, Songde, Sisi Chanju, Ningbola, Shiji Pardu, Gangni, Namjicho, Sangyela, Gyabsuchiu, Dejatang, Chawa, Namjicho, Shula, Gyabsuchiu, Cho Namjicho, Gendunla, Gyabsuchiu. Now the third time is very important. At the end of the third time, that you should have the conviction, you should have the certainty that you have actually received the refuge vow. So with that, again, you repeat after me in the same way the third time. Loben, Gongsuso, Da Ming, Xiejiwe, Tu Dine, Songde, Sisi Chanju, Ningbola, Shiji Pardu, Gangni, Namjicho, Sangyela, Gyabsuchiu, Dejatang, Chawa, Namjicho, Shula, Gyabsuchiu, Cho Namjicho, Gendunla, Gyabsuchiu. So with this now you have received the refuge vow. After receiving the refuge vow, one needs to keep the rules. So there are 2 rules, general rule and specific rules. The general rules are that after there are 5 general rules. The number 1 is that one should never give up triple gem. Even if it costs one's life, one should not give up triple gem. And then the second is whatever happens in your life, whatever kind of emergency or urgency rise, you should always seek the protection and the guidance from the Triple Gem. And then third is to make offerings. Daily basis, if you have a shrine in your own house, if not at least on the special occasions such as like on the Vesak and Dharma Chakra Day and so on. And also whenever you eat food, that you should make offerings to the Triple Gem. And then fourth is you should practice the refuge, reciting, and also through the verbally and through the physically and through the mentally as much as possible, and also encourage other people to take refuge. And then the fifth one is that wherever you go, you should try to remember the Buddha of that direction, as each direction has a one Buddha. If not, at least to remember the Buddha wherever we go. So these are the 5 general rules. And then there are specific rules, and that is after taking refuge in the Buddha, that you can't take refuge with any worldly deities. This does not mean that you can't pay respect or you can't make offerings. You can still pay respect and offerings, but you can't take refuge. You see, there's the difference of taking refuge and paying respect. Paying respect does not mean that you are taking refuge. Taking refuge means that you are totally submitting yourself under the guidance and protection so that you can't do with the worldly deities. And after taking refuge in the Dharma, you can't harm any living beings intentionally. Accidentally, like stepping on a worm or something, that if you don't, as long as you don't have the intention, that doesn't count. But if you intentionally harm any living beings, then it is against the rules. And after taking refuge in the sangha, you should not take the heretics or the non-believers as your. Again, this does not mean you can't have any non-believers as your general friends, but as a spiritual friends, spiritual to whom you share your spiritual practices, your spiritual experience and practice. So you can't take the non-believers as your companions, spiritual companions. So these are the specific rules. And then also that you should always try to generate the devotion to the Buddha, and also practice Dharma as much as possible through study, contemplation, and meditation, and also respect all the Sangha members, irrespective of whether the person is good or bad, but as long as wears the robes, monks and nuns, that one should respect. And then also you should try to live your own everyday life through the mindful and remembrance in the virtuous ways. So by doing this way, that then you will experience happiness in this life, and also in the future you go from happiness to happiness, and eventually be able to attain the liberation and enlightenment. So I will just conclude. 탈배경된 넘버 주지 청바주버 서탈신벌 주지 수dum지 fonbo 용sun 저버 주지 깨와던 새로 탐지 뺨르 넘버 터버 주지 침지 수dum 깨매진 수dum 넘버 단단데 롬선매베 수dum지 수dum 바로 친도 셴네시 지방라 컴베 밀람나야 디스미제시 전주섬다 나야미르 수dum 부숨 저베 다시수